Lyman Medeiros, how you doing?
I am fantastic, Thunder. Good to see you again, man. Been a long, long time.
Yeah, it's been too long.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
okay, so you were kind of joking when you said 20 years, but it's
Not.
been about 20 years.
It's been
It's
about.
been more than 20 years.
It might have been more than 20 years. So we went to Western Michigan together, and I
Yeah,
graduated in 2000, and
right.
I moved away right after. So I think it has been 20 plus
That's
years.
right. Oh my goodness, man.
I know. Doesn't seem like
Yeah,
it.
I finished my I finished so you did a master's at Western.
Correct. Yeah.
That's
I was
right.
only there
And
for a
I
couple
finished a
years.
year after you
Right.
with my master's.
Yeah.
Where did you do your undergrad? At one time, I knew this, but where
Yeah.
did you do your undergrad?
So I did my undergraduate degree at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, and
Right.
that was actually a classical music degree. The school didn't have a jazz degree. They might now, I don't know, but at the time they didn't. And I just knew I wanted to play bass, so I got a classical degree, and I'm glad I did because it really, really helped with the foundation of my technique and as far as just playing the instrument. And then when I got to Western after earning my bachelor's, I did my master's in jazz performance. So
Right.
that's what brought me there. And boy, was that a great place and a great time for for me to be at the school with guys like you and Quincy Davis and James Dandifer and Bartos Sadala, and man, what a great community of musicians that really kicked my butt, and
You kicked our butt too, man. You kicked our butt too, man.
Thanks.
Always a joy to play with you.
It was.
I'm thinking back about let's see here. What was it? Me, you, Bartosh, Mike Caskey.
Yeah. And we won a Downbeat Award.
Oh yeah, man.
We won a Downbeat
That's
Award.
right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, for combo or whatever they call it, small group or whatever they call it.
Yeah, that's right.
That was a fun group.
Oh, it was super fun because Bartosh's writing. I mean, I think I wrote a couple things to bring to the group too, but Bartosh's writing was just so beautiful, and
it was. I remember it was very McCoy-esque to where it was like really open and you could really just go in, when you started blowing, which was fun. You always challenged everybody's energy level, which was great. This is great. I mean, I love to be challenged like that on the bandstand, even today,
Yeah, I mean, really formative time. And as you
Definitely.
said, some really terrific classmates,
Mm-hmm.
and great teachers.
Yeah.
I interviewed Trent Keniston.
Great. How's he doing?
Oh, he's doing well. I saw him the last time I saw him in person.
Mm-hmm.
I was on tour with the Count Basie Orchestra, and we went to Arizona. And it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours from where he lives.
Okay.
But him and the wife, they came down or over to the concert, and that was like, that was kind of a pinch yourself moment.
Yeah, I bet.
For your teacher to see you play with that band.
Yeah, I bet. That's great. When was that? And do you still work with him in any capacity?
Well, with the pandemic, everything's kind of on hold. But
yeah, of course.
But just before the pandemic, I did a couple hits with them.
Great.
And and once things get started back, I mean, I'm not a permanent member of the band, but I've been frequently called to do some tours and
great. I know Scotty Barnhart.
Oh yeah, that's my man.
Worked with him a bit. Yeah, he's great. And we lost James Leary, which is a big blow to our scene here in Los Angeles, where I live. It's too bad. He was a great player, great, like pillar of the old school jazz community here.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great, though.
I was going to ask you, did you know Roger Shue?
I did. I knew Roger Shue very well.
Yeah.
So I started my master's degree in 1998, and he started his master's degree in 1999. So we were at school together. We overlapped 1 year. We shared offices, you know, because we had both had teaching assistantships. And Roger and his wife, Roger, fantastic bass player, and his wife Jamie, great singer. They were there at the same time. They actually played at my wedding. I got married the summer after I graduated from Western Michigan, and they, you know, got a little band together of some of the homies to play the wedding reception, and she sang and he played, and it was great. And then they wound up, I moved to Los Angeles in 2000, right after I graduated, and they wound up out here to probably 5 or 6 years later. And they moved to Orange County, and she teaches at Fullerton College, which is a really great junior college in Orange County, but they have a very strong applied music program, very strong jazz program. And she teaches there, and he taught there as well. He taught their bass lessons, and he also taught at a couple high schools and gigs, you know. And then he had a rare form of cancer and passed away about 4 years ago, which was really devastating. He has a son that's the same age as my son, 14 years old now. And it was tremendously sad, and everybody missed him. And but I now teach at Fullerton College, in the place where he taught for so many years, working alongside Jamie. So that's I like that. So it's a lot of fun. I love teaching at that college, and it's you know, it's cool to have that connection to Roger, because our lives paralleled each other in so many ways. You know, we were around the same age, went to the same school, and, you know, a lot of the same bass influences, everything. So you knew Roger as well.
Oh yeah, and Roger played in the East End Orchestra. Remember that group?
Oh yeah,
Western for a while, and brought some charts in. I remember he brought in Fables of Faubus.
Yeah, he was a big Mingus
fan. I still
fan.
have that chart. It's still in the book.
Nice.
And such a terrific musician, and such a warm person. I mean, just in a heavy dude, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
great sense of humor.
Yeah.
He had Jamie for his memorial. There was a big memorial at the school, and, you know, a lot of performances. And then she had like a jam session in her backyard, and so many former students and friends and colleagues were there. It was a really beautiful thing, as you can imagine, knowing him like you did. He's such a friendly guy, and such a great sense of humor, warm guy. It was good. It was good to honor him like that.
So let's rewind a little bit. I mean, I'm sure we'll head back to Western at some point in our conversation now.
Okay.
Because that was such a such a formative time, and
definitely
lots of stuff to reflect on.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of folks in common and all of that.
Definitely.
But let's talk about young Lyman.
Mm-hmm. Young Lyman.
Okay, let's talk about, like, when you started music, when music occurred to you, what kind of stuff was happening around your house?
Sure. I'm part Hawaiian, and I was raised in Hawaii for a very short time, until I was about 4 years old, with my mom and dad. Mom and dad split up, and mom brought me back to Indiana, where I grew up for most of my life. And my mom loves music, but I mean, she can't carry a tune at all. She's like, nothing happening as far as a musical ear and any talent. But she always loved music, and would be, you know, she had the, you know, back in the 80s, like every parent had the Columbia House vinyl collection with all, you know, and she liked like 70s classic rock stuff like Fleetwood Mac and stuff like that. And she'd always be playing music. My dad's a bass player as well. And growing up, we weren't very close, my dad and I, but I knew he played bass. And when I...
Thank you so much for watching my video so far. If you'd like to support
There are several ways to do so below. Also, likes are free. Please comment, share, and subscribe. Now back to the video.
But I knew he played bass. And when I started getting interested in music, probably around 12, 13, I knew I wanted to play bass too, just because he did. So initially when I started playing, I was just, like in a garage band playing writing rock and roll songs with my 13, 14-year-old friends, and I loved it, but wasn't really, bitten by the music bug yet. And so I stuck with electric bass all through high school. Played in the high school jazz band. Now, my high school where I went didn't have an orchestra, but they had a couple old dusty upright basses in the instrument room. So I could fumble around and play a little bit of upright bass, but I couldn't play enough to get into college. But I knew I wanted to be a musician. I knew I wanted to major in music. So I auditioned for Ball State actually on bassoon. I don't tell many people this. I used to play bassoon. and I auditioned on bassoon and they let me in the college, but I got there and I knew I wanted to play bass. And I was lucky because my first year at Ball State was also the bass professor's first year. They had a former professor had retired, and then they had an interim guy, and then a new bassist by the name of Hans Sturm was got the permanent gig. So the studio was very small because there had been some turnover and not really recruiting or anything. So he let me into the bass studio, even though I really couldn't bow, which was very fortunate, And so I started studying with him. 2 or 3 weeks in to my freshman year of college. I go to the bass studio, and professor's office is close, and a couple of the other bass majors say, "Hey man, Ray Brown is playing tonight in Fort Wayne. We're going to go. Come with us." To which I say, "Who's Ray Brown?" So they look at me like I'm crazy. And my bass teacher goes, just go with him to the concert. Okay, I'm down. So we all, 3 or 4 of us pile in one of their cars and we drive from Muncie to Fort Wayne. And we get there, and the venue is it's like a club in a hotel lobby. It was kind of weird. I remember. I mean, it was cool, but it was open, like a big hotel lobby, and then a bar, and then a bunch of chairs set up. We got there, and the maitre d' goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's 21 plus." And he must have just saw the look on the guy's face, just get so depressed. He's like, "Okay, I'll set up some chairs back here by the rope and you guys can sit here, but don't go any closer or anything." Okay, cool. That night is Ray Brown, Benny Green, Jeff Hamilton, Ray Brown Trio. And I swear to you, my life changed that night. I saw Ray play and I was like, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that's pretty much all I've done since then. He was so amazing, and the group sounds so huge. The way Benny Green plays the piano, and the way Hammer plays the drums, and Ray's just swinging so hard. It was just it just blew my mind that all this music was coming from this trio. And Ray's just the coolest, and he wore pinky rings, and he's playing, playing the bass, and everything's soulful. And he'd be playing and be like, "Yeah, watch it." And he'd be saying, he'd be encouraging the band with his words throughout the performance. It was amazing. So that's when jazz took a hold of my life. And all through the rest of my bachelor's degree, I mentioned my bachelor's degree is in classical. So I was practicing, mostly classical music, but I played in the jazz band and studied jazz as well. And then it came time for me to graduate, and I knew I wasn't at the level to move to LA or New York or even anywhere and start working steadily. And I probably needed to get, a master's degree just to continue studying. We don't, in Indianapolis where I grew up, there's not a scene that would there's not enough opportunity to let a young player just go and kind of cut his teeth playing with guys and doing gigs and stuff. To kind of be around other musicians like that, it's good to stick with school for a while. So that's, I auditioned for Tom Kniffik at Western Michigan, the spring break of my senior year. college. I drove around. I auditioned for, the bass teacher at Northern Illinois and the bass teacher at Ohio State, actually, way back
Paul
then.
Robinson.
Yes, Paul Robinson, and Mr. K, Tom Knifick, and yeah, I really liked. You know what I really liked about it when I went there is the music building was really cool, man. I like the way it was laid out. And Knifick is a really warm guy, but he's also kind of like straight to the point, and they offered me an assistantship, and I kind of jumped at it, and I wound up at Western Michigan, and Knifick was the perfect teacher for me at that moment, because I'd studied so much classical. I was kind of behind as far as transcribing and really having a lot of language, under my hands. And there was a lot of listening I hadn't got to. So I got there and I started playing with you and Quincy and Chris Sargent and James Dandifer and that group we had. And I was like, I quickly realized, I was like, okay, I'm gonna need to hit the shed if I'm gonna hang with these guys. You know what I mean? Which was great. It was the kick in the butt I needed. And I remember my first lesson with Mr. K, my second lesson, our first lesson, he's like, okay, do this etude, come back. So I came back the next week. I was like, oh yeah, I got etude number 1, no problem. So let's just start with etude number 2. And he's like, well, let me hear etude 1 first. And I played it. And he goes, I thought you said you had this. I was like, yeah, I do. He said, why'd you play so many wrong notes? I'm like, all right. This is great because he's such a like a friendly, almost soft-spoken guy, but he can, he's not going to blow sunshine. You know what I mean? Which is what I needed. And then
That's great.
And then my time at Western, my jazz playing, my ears, my improvisation just reached a couple new levels when I was there. And that kind of set the stage for, my artistry later and the kind of playing I do, for my career.
Yeah, man. What was I was going to ask you about? So the bassoon.
The bassoon, yeah.
That's very interesting. So, I mean, you have to be able to play well to get into a school of music,
Yeah, I think
on
if
an instrument like a bassoon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. You were holding back some stuff because I don't think
back, man.
Yeah, I don't think you told me you played bassoon because I think I would have talked to you about that.
Yeah, I don't like telling a lot of people that. I think if I had a passion for the instrument, I could have stuck with it, but I really didn't. I remember one of the biggest reasons why I played bassoon is because I remember in 6th grade, the middle school band director came to our class and they showed us a little movie of all the different instruments you can play when you go to middle school if you wanted. And one of them was the bassoon. I was like, oh man, that thing's crazy. I've never seen anything like that. And so I tell him when class starts, the next year and I'm in middle school, I'm like, hey, what about that bassoon? I want to, let me check that out. And he was like, oh yeah, definitely. Cause don't no one want to play bassoon. And he like shoves the bassoon in my hand and I'm playing it. I'm like, well, how about saxophone? He's like, no, you should stick with bassoon. Bassoon's good for you. So,
the thing about the bassoon, cause I dated someone when I was working on my undergrad that was a bassoon player.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, let me see what this bassoon is about.
Mm-hmm.
So she taught me some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned some things. Of course, the fingering is totally backwards.
Oh, yeah.
It would be.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I learned some stuff and I was like, I don't know. Let's see. And then we started talking and she was telling me something about, as a bassoonist, half of your practice time is making reeds.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when I was like, yeah, this is not the instrument for me.
Your saxophone player should just be like, nope. Not with bassoon, man. You gotta. I actually played plastic reeds mostly, all through high school. I never got into making them. I never got in that deep.
Well, that's interesting because you know, I've got I don't know if you can I don't know that you can see it really. It's sort of on the edge of the yeah, it's like just behind the television back there. It's
Okay.
sticking up just a little bit. There's an oboe back there.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Now I don't play the oboe really, but I have one, and but it's been my intention to start learning for the last couple years. It's been my intention to start learning, and I got some really, you know, some custom made reeds from the oboist that teaches at Ohio State now.
Great.
And
it's a beautiful instrument, man. I remember you monster doubler. I remember. Why not play oboe too?
Well, you know, I play the single reed stuff. You know, the double reed stuff. That's a different thing.
Totally
Now, I'm trying to make myself start doing the oboe thing. But see, I actually play on all synthetic reeds, and I played synthetics for 20 some years.
Oh, really?
Actually, I think I was playing synthetics. Oh yeah, I was. But by the time we met, probably I was either right at the end of Kane or had already converted to synthetics.
Interesting.
So like the Kane thing, like even on a single, like with single reeds, like it was so inconsistent for me and what I needed out of a reed that I was just wasting reeds like crazy. I mean, I get a box of like 15 reeds. I could play 2 of them, and I'd blow through one in a practice session and then another one on a gig. And it's like, now I got to go buy another box of 15 reeds. And I didn't do any of that custom stuff, soaking the reeds and all this other baby in the reeds
Shaving
and all that.
down.
I don't forget that, man. I can't do it. I can't mess with it, man.
Do you encourage your students to use fiber cane, or do you encourage them to use wood? Or
well, I'm pretty open to whatever they want to play on. I mean, and a lot of teachers, they get into this thing where, you know, this is a Selmer only studio, you know, or this is a, you know, you got to play Van Doren if you're in here, you know. They'll get into like some real specific stuff. I mean, no cats, and this is it's not as common a practice, but it used to be like kind of a common practice that if you go and study with somebody, you're supposed to get the horn that they play on.
wow,
You know, the kind of reeds, and all that kind of stuff. But I've never been that way, and so my students tend to play a variety of things. A lot of them play on synthetics, and there are a few synthetics that are actually good reeds, and then there's a bunch of stuff that's like kind of suspect. You know, I play on pretty much all Leger reeds now. Leger signature for the classical stuff, and for like soprano and Barry and stuff like that. Then I'm playing these new reeds they call American cut, and I'm playing those on alto and on tenor, and on clarinet I play the European cut. But the technology has gotten really, really good.
interesting.
I'm willing to say that if you have the perfect cane reed, there's nothing that can touch that. But say if you have, I don't know, say if you have like 5 reeds, one of them is the perfect cane reed, the other ones are all really great reeds and really playable. You can get a synthetic that'll play as good as any of those.
As good as interesting.
But then it'll be the same every time, right? So then that's sort of the thing. So I'm willing to admit that it's not quite a cane reed, but it's just so convenient.
You know, it's a similar thing with upright bass and the strings, the technology as far as how strings are made, and pickups and amps to a lesser extent. But as far as getting a great percussive acoustic bass sound, you can do it. You know, like you know, old school, like even like back in the 90s, you're like, oh, you know, jack the strings up off the bass and play gut strings and play with no amp, which can be cool, but every bass is different. And sometimes you would do that and it would just like kind of overpower the instrument and it wouldn't resonate well. And then, you know, now the technology, like you were saying, is so good. They have like strings that are like, they have like a nylon gut core and they're wrapped in steel, so they're easier on the hands, but they're still nice, punchy, percussive, and they make the instrument resonate. You know, it doesn't have to be as hard as it used to be, you know, to get that rich acoustic sound, wood sound that we're all going for. You know,
now you can probably see that I've got some basses hanging on the wall behind me.
and I've seen some of your licks. I forget what you call them, lick of the day or whatever.
Hot licks, yeah.
All right, don't be taking my gigs now, Thunder.
But you probably, well, I mean, you notice that there's no acoustic bass back there,
Right.
so I owned an acoustic bass.
Oh wow.
It was like an eighth size. The body was like an eighth size, full scale length and everything. Neck was like a regular instrument. You could bow it, you know, the arc and everything, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some work done to it, so it was perfect. It was one of these collapsible instruments that they make, you know. So, you know, if I wanted to travel with it or something, that I could. And, you know, I learned all of my major scales, 2 octaves with all the correct fingerings.
Wow, check you out.
And then I said, yeah, I think I'm done with an acoustic bass. I mean, you know, I've played electric bass since let's see here, I don't know, 2005 or 2006.
Wow.
And what got me started was, well, first of all, from playing with a lot of the great bass players I've played with, like you and Roger and Sean Summer, you know, and then, you know, then Victor Wooten and Bill Dickens, you know, Rodney Whitaker, like all of these great bass players, Bob Hurst.
Oh yeah.
One
of my faves.
You know, goodness, it's just a long list of. I've been really blessed and fortunate to play with great bass players.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had that sort of sound in my head. In my writing, I always like sort of kind of intuitively understood what I needed to do with the bass, you know, though I didn't play the instrument.
Right.
And what changed all that, you know, as far as me deciding, okay, let me go ahead and start learning this instrument. I had been playing with Victor Wooten for, you know, some years, and he came to Michigan. What am I saying? I almost committed a really unforgivable sin there.
It was a Big Ten crime. You better not.
It's wrong. He came to Ohio State and he did a master class for Paul Robinson's studio.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think I played with him and his brothers at the Newport, which is a venue. It's a big, large venue that's on High Street, not far from the School of Music.
Cool.
Like that weekend or something. But so he came and he does this master class. I recorded the master class. I have to find that footage. I don't even know where it is now. I recorded the master class. Right after the master class, I went right to a music store and I bought a bass.
Wow. Awesome.
It was just he's just
he is deep.
He really is, but he's deep, but he's like like the language, all the language metaphors that he likes.
Yes. I stole all that. I use all that in my lessons when I'm teaching bassists who are new to jazz or who've never improvised before. All that. I forget that book. He wrote a book that I read that was man, it was
The Music Lesson.
Yes, thank you. The Music Lesson.
Yeah, and he's got a new book out now too.
That's what I heard.
What oh my goodness, I can't call the name of it. I'll find it here so I can say the name of it.
Right
but he's a good dude. We had him at Ohio State. So we had our 44th annual Ohio State Jazz Festival, and it was a virtual festival. And we had him and his brothers. That was the headliner concert.
Amazing.
Bess Martin, and that was terrific.
He's unreal.
Yeah.
So I teach at
they did a great master class too. It was sweet.
I teach at a school called Musicians Institute here in Hollywood, in LA, which is it's a private school for the curriculum's geared toward kids who want to be like pop and rock musicians mainly. And I teach all electric. I teach upright lessons too, but it's just like as an elective, I've only had a couple guys like serious in upright bass. It's mostly electric. And the school has a nice rep with a lot of pros, and there's always guys coming in and out. Gary Willis from Tribal Tech, the great fretless bass player, was at Musicians Institute giving a master class, and it was around the time of NAMM. So Victor was in town. Victor shows up just to attend Gary Willis's master class. Like he's sitting in the front row, just like listening to Gary and soaking everything up and like asking questions. And all the students are like, oh, that's Victor. And Victor, he's just like, he's like, Gary, I want to talk about your time. Like, how do you like, he's like there learning, and
he's a heavy dude. He's really like that
amazing.
Too. So the thing is he's really like that.
Yeah. You could tell
really
it wasn't like, he wasn't shucking and jiving, He was, he was very interested in what Gary Willis had to say.
Right. It's interesting because sometimes, people will come and they'll be in the spot because they want to be seen, and they wanted to, this will be a good example for my students to see me doing this, this kind of
stand in the back, talk to the other guys.
But none of that. He's none of that. Totally genuine dude. The name of his new book is The Spirit of Music, The Lesson Continues.
Oh, The Lesson. I'm going to check that out. I'm going to check that out because that first book was great.
Yeah. It's he's a heavy dude. I interviewed Frank Gambale, and I talked to him about Alan Holdsworth.
Oh, yeah.
They were friends, and he tells a story about how Alan Holdsworth, his band was opening for Chick's band, like on this tour or whatever, and he was talking about how great Alan's playing was, and how Alan was totally like self-deprecating and stuff. Like he'd get off the stage, man, that was so terrible, and he was like, it was all about that. Until one time he comes off the stage and he's saying that this same sort of terrible stuff about his playing. Of course, he's like godlike, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, totally.
And so they just went with it. They said, yeah, you know what? You were sounding terrible today. And they went in like that. And then they had a big laugh. And then, that kind of broke the ice, and that's kind of created a different sort of thing. But there's some footage I was watching. So what was this? It was it was Frank was playing on a gig. It was at a NAMM show.
Okay.
And you can see it's like one of these things that's like, it's not a concert, it's like it was at a booth, and then like people are walking around, and lo and behold, Alan Holdsworth walks around. And he's standing like the camera's like right on him. I mean, because it's like through Frank to
right.
him. Just seeing him standing there, and really soaking it in. It's like you were saying, he not there for show. He was there to see his friend, but he was really there to check it out.
Yeah.
And that's something.
That's a lesson to
something
learn
about
there, man. These
yeah,
guys are
yeah.
masters, and they're still seeking more knowledge.
I was another story. I was at a IAJE conference. Now defunct IAJE, been sort of replaced by the Gen conference.
Yeah.
Although the Gen conference is still not quite the size that the IAJE was. And it was pretty commonplace at that conference to see jazz royalty just walking around doing all the same stuff everyone else was doing. And I was at a booth. I was, at some music. It was at a book booth. It was like in a sort of an area where there was a bunch of manufacturers, a bunch of publishers, right?
Okay.
And James Moody walks up. And he goes right over to, he's already got this huge bag of books. Okay. This is stuff that he just picked up. Okay. And then he's going through and he's like, oh yeah, I don't have this book yet. Oh yeah, this is, man, I'm going to deal with this. Right. And the same thing. It's like, and that's not for show. See, the thing is, I do get the sense that there's a lot of posing. Let's just talk facts. There's a lot of posing.
It is.
But this cat was not posing. This is like, in everything you hear about, Moody and his lots of practicing, always into something new, always checking out the next thing, always asking cats, about what they're dealing with. That's just, to me, that's what it's about.
It's like if you can put the ego aside and still, once you do that, you're comfortable saying, hey, I need to check that out. I'm not, once you're confident in the work you've put in on the instrument, and you feel somewhat good about your playing. I know that's a day-to-day thing, but once you get that level, you're able to put that ego aside and say, you don't have to pose for anybody. You can say, hey man, what are you doing? I'm gonna check that out. I need to read this book. Whatever. That's great.
Yeah, it's strange because the ego is a strange thing, because you need the ego because that can actually motivate you to improve.
That's true.
Right?
That's true too.
But
you can't let it get in the way.
Side of the knee. Yeah, there's that other side of the ego that I don't want to learn from this guy because I don't want him to think that I need something that he has or that I'm lesser than. There's that thing in there too. And so trying to figure out what part of that you're gonna feed off of.
Right. That kind of reminds me, because you brought up Frank Mbali too. After I got to Western and I knew, I really needed to focus on bass and transcribing and learning tunes and the masters. And I got very, very focused on Ray and Paul Chambers and Ron and all the guys, and really learning how to swing and working on my time. And so, I kind of became, for a few years, even after I graduated, what, has been termed a bebop Nazi or super straight ahead or whatever. And, which is, looking back is silly, but that's, that college kids, that's how you talk, and there was, there was always, when you talked about guys like Chick's Electric Band or Yellow Jackets or anything, there's always oh yeah, it's good, but it's not swinging, there's always a little bit of attitude when you talk about that. So I never really checked that out because it wasn't swinging. And then I guess it was about 2 or 3 years ago, probably 3 now, Chick started touring with the OG Electric Band lineup, and they'd come here at Catalina's in Hollywood to play. And I went floored. I was floored by these guys. Every one of them's a master of their instrument, undisputed. And they are all playing so much. They're saying so much on their instrument, but not getting in each other's way at the same time, still playing together. I was just floored. You know, Patitucci's on the 6th string, killing it, and Gabali's playing faster than anybody, but it's all like counterpoint. They're all still listening to each other, you know. It was amazing. Made me think back to my younger, sillier self. It was like, you know, this is the shit too. You know, I should have been into it the whole time.
I mean, I was, you know, we all go through some of that, and it's interesting because, yeah, I mean, you can look back and be like, man, I should have been more open to X, Y, and Z, but you only have so much time, and at certain times in your life, you really do need to be really soaking in stuff, the same stuff.
That's true,
you
too.
know?
Yes.
I like this. I use this illustration, you know. There's a difference between chicken strips with some barbecue sauce on them and meat that has been marinating overnight.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a different formula. That ain't the same stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe you think it's the same thing. But that just shows that you ain't had the real thing yet.
Yeah, your taste may not quite be there.
Yeah. But the thing is that it's the time soaking in that's irreplaceable. You can't just put something on the surface.
Very
so
true.
Sometimes it's like you have to go through that. And I kind of went through that same thing, and I was kind of, you know, frowning on a lot of the commercial stuff. Frankly.
Yeah, sure.
You know, on a lot of commercial stuff, and you know, went through that. Where, I mean, and he was very outspoken about it. And so,
very much.
And so we all know that he was that way.
Yeah, totally.
But now it's like he's doing, like, you know, concerts with like Willie Nelson and stuff.
I know, which was great.
You know,
right.
So
recordings.
I don't know. Sometimes it seems like it takes that to get you to do what's necessary to dig deep enough. But, you know, one of the issues that I find that younger folks have is because everything's free and there's so much of it, it can make it really difficult to become really deep in any particular thing. Yes.
I remember, man, we had to go to we'd go to the record store and be looking at CDs, go to used CDs because they were cheaper, and you bought a CD and you lived with it, you know. Now, I'm not one of these guys that's going to get on a trip about hating streaming and everything. I think it's miraculous that I can listen to anything I want at my phone at any time, and it's great for teaching.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
that's the challenge, right? Everything's accessible, so what to listen to? You know what I mean? It's like how do you focus, you know? And how do you focus on the records that are going to shape your voice on your instrument? You know what I mean? Because I could rattle off 5-6 records right now that I got so deep into that, you know, that really, really influenced my playing, you know. And I just wonder if, you know, 20-year-olds out there can say the same thing. Maybe so, you know, maybe so. But that is definitely a challenge.
I was talking to Dan Wilson. I interviewed him recently, the great guitarist.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, he's back.
And actually, he was just earlier today. He was on one of those Monday night concerts that Emmett Cohen does.
Oh yeah,
that he streams. He was playing on that earlier today, and that was pretty cool. But I was talking to Dan about kind of the same thing, and he's a little bit younger than us, but he's old enough to kind of remember when you still had to kind of dig for stuff. And one thing that he talks about is, like, with his students, like he'll make them go through a whole record, like learn everything on that record, like inside and out. And that's like a way to sort of counteract the sort of access to everything. Yeah. All the time. Oh, everything. So what should I listen to?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
And so you can get into like paralysis on what you should listen to. Like, well, you know, I want to be listening to the best this or the best that. And it's like,
my thing is, like, I'm learning a tune and I look, like, say it's like a standard, like an American Songbook thing. And I go on Spotify and I search the tune and maybe I'm looking for, Nancy Wilson's version, and I put it in, and like all these hits come. I was like, oh wait, Sinatra did that too. And then I start listening. I was like, what? Wait, I was supposed to check out Nancy Wilson. Like a half an hour later, I've checked out everything. I've checked out everything but Nancy Wilson. You know what I mean? It's so easy to get sidetracked.
But I think, to your point, though, I think it is a beautiful thing to have that kind of access.
Mm-hmm. I do too, man.
It seems to me, and I made this point on the interview with Dan. It seems to me that we really have a sort of advantage over folks that are, say, 25 and younger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 20 and younger. We have a real advantage. And the advantage is we actually, because we had to actually go to the record store and actually go and get the stuff. And then when you got a new record, then you burn it out, learned everything on it, really, so there's like the skin in the game. And so in our developmental years, we develop that sort of respect and reverence of the music. So then having all this access to music, it's not like we've lost reverence for it. It's just we have access to more of it, and so I think it's still possible for us to still have that. We still have a certain idea of how valuable the music is, though it's free.
Yeah, that's well said. Valuable.
Yeah,
very much so. Very much so.
So talk to us about your family, man. You were talking about some baseball or something.
Yeah, man, baseball has been a huge part of my life for the past 4 or 5 years. My wife and I got married the summer after I graduated from Western Michigan, and I moved to Los Angeles that same summer and started working. And then 2007. We had our son, Milo, and he's an only child. And we kind of knew that he'd be an only child even back then because I'm on the road so much touring. And, she has a career. She was at the time a middle school guidance counselor. She's a vice principal now. But, she's busy with her career and I'm out of town. It's just, juggling one child gets tricky enough. So he was an only child. So we knew that he needed to be around other kids, so we had him playing sports early, like YMCA basketball when he was 5, 6 years old, flag football, all of it. And he kind of gravitated towards baseball. And man, I love it. I'm always the little league dad, like wearing the shirt. Like if he's on the Dodgers team, then I'll have the Dodgers shirt. I'm on the sidelines yelling and stuff. But I was always on the road so much that I'd miss a third or half of his games, when he'd play. So the shutdown started and, everyone's stuck at home, nothing to do, especially musicians. By the time last summer hits, some friends of mine and I got together a weekly baseball game of jazz musicians, primarily jazz musicians, mostly musicians. We started playing and my friend called me. He's like, hey man, you want to play baseball with me and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, man, let me bring my son. He's really good, even though he's just 13. So we started a weekly baseball game. We call it the MBL, Musicians Baseball League. And it would be mostly all musicians and then my son and, friends of his from his travel team. So, and that was like a saving grace, during the shutdown to have something to look forward to every week that you could do. Everyone outside, you didn't have to be close to people if you didn't want to be, so everyone felt pretty safe. And, every week we played for a year. It was really great. And then finally we didn't the whole Little League season was canceled out here for Los Angeles. Our shutdown has been, as strict as any shutdowns, the past year. So finally they were able to start playing about a month ago. Yeah. A little around, about 5-6 weeks ago, they said, hey, we're finally going to have a Little League season. I'm still not touring, obviously. So this was like a great opportunity to, coach, not only go to every game, but then I wanted to coach too, because I've been playing so much. So I've been coaching my son's little league team and it's been the best, man. Other than performing music, it's like, there's no better feeling than coaching my son and seeing him out there pitching and getting hits and working with the boys and trying to get them better.
And you said your son is 14.
He's 14. Yeah, turned 14 in February.
Oh, that's great. My son is 7,
Mm-hmm.
and he's also an only child. And same kind of deal with both of his parents being very busy. But also just he's a real social kid, which at times makes me kind of sad.
Oh yeah.
Because he was doing the thing about like complaining, like when am I going to have a sister, or when am I going to have a brother? He was doing that for a while,
Yeah.
and he's kind of laid off of that now. But actually earlier today I took him to batting cages.
Oh, cool.
It was the first time for this season, actually.
Nice.
I took him last year. Was it last year, or was it not? Was a year before that, or maybe it was a year and a half ago, I guess. I was taking him for, I don't know, I probably took him 4 or 5 times, but I want to start, doing it more consistently. And then we just got I found a coach to help him work on his throwing, catching, and fielding.
Oh, that's great. I tell you, man, baseball is beautiful because it like half of baseball is failure and learning how to deal with failure. Because I don't care if you're Babe Ruth or Barry Bonds, you don't hit the ball every time you step to the plate. You don't, you know. And even if you're one of the best, you maybe hit the ball 3 times out of 10 every time you go up there.
Right.
So there's just a lot of life lessons there in baseball. You could be sitting on the outfield, bored for 3 innings. Next thing you know, a ball comes to you and it'll be the biggest play of the game. Like, are you going to catch it? Like, you've been bored for 3 innings, and now you have the ball coming for you, the biggest hit of the game.
Right.
You can make a play on it, So that's why I love it so much. Is there's so much to learn about like I said, life lessons and stuff. I mean, any sport, but particularly baseball for me.
Yeah, I think so, and it's interesting. Now, my son is left-handed.
Oh, that's
so
great.
Yeah. So I think that, and he's super athletic. And he's interested. He just likes sports. I mean, we had him doing flag football. We're going to do that again this year.
Flag football is fun, man.
Yep. And so he's totally about that. And he's a rough and tumble kid. I've learned to, at least have my stomach muscles, at least halfway tense anytime he's around. Because I know the punches are coming.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Like with no announcement, just and not a light punch, but like
he goes for it, huh?
He's right. He's trying to test me.
That's awesome. That's great, man.
But it's really great. Now, the question always is, to those that have devoted their life to music, that have kids, it always is, well, is your son gonna play? Is he gonna play music? It's always it's always there. And I think even when people don't out and out say it, it's like they're thinking it.
Totally.
I bought my son all the stuff. He's got there's a P trumpet over there. And there's a set of drums that's being, concealed by this sort of.
I see it. E drums,
yeah. Well, there's these drums. This is the electronic drums, but there's the drums behind that business there, which is kind of like under the bass guitars on the wall.
Gotcha.
And he's got a guitar, and he's got a pedal board and an amp and all this stuff. So I got all of this stuff. And that's cool. But it's always like the thing where, how soon is too soon? How early is too early? And do you, there's always like a fear of, if you make a kid do something, then you can sort of knock any kind of joy that they might experience with that thing,
Right.
There's that versus like, should you make them do it because you're trying to teach them discipline?
Mhm.
You know, so it's like this tricky kind of thing that's going on.
Right.
And if he doesn't want to do music, he doesn't have to do music.
That's good.
And frankly, the life of a musician it's hard.
You can't do it unless you absolutely love it and absolutely want to. You know, my son has no interest in music. Well, I should say he has no interest in being a musician. And I kind of learned early on, like, music is just like not cool to him. It's like there's no mystery about it. He's been going to jazz clubs and theaters and stuff since he's like 4 or 5 years old. Music is like daddy's job, you know. The music he likes is like, you know, the hip hop and rap that's popular right now. And even with that, I was like, you know, we could get on the computer, try to make some beats. He's just not at all interested. So I've never pushed it. Music wasn't pushed on me. I came to it naturally. So,
Right.
so I've never, I've never pushed it. He did take like violin lessons as part of a school program when he was in elementary school, but that was more for like the discipline part. But
Right.
he really didn't like it and really didn't take to it. So I've never pushed it much. I kind of have a theory, like once he starts liking girls more, that he might want to learn how to play guitar or something. You know? But we'll see. We'll see. He's kind of a late bloomer, so 14. He's not quite there yet. We'll see if that happens.
You're telling our secrets, man.
I know, right? Sorry about that. That's funny though. I remember your father was always around and a great presence and
Yeah.
you know, pushing you and very supportive.
Yeah, I in that way, I think I had an unfair advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a great musician and a great teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm sorry,
so
has
I
he
lived
passed,
with my
Sean? I
teacher.
don't even know. Has he passed,
Huh?
Sean? I don't. Is he still with us? Has he passed? I don't even. know.
Yeah, he's still with us.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, you said he
What is
was a
it?
great teacher, so I
Well, I mean, he's not my teacher anymore.
yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
I mean,
Just making
he's
sure. That's
my
great.
he's still my teacher in life.
Sure,
we you know,
sure.
but we don't, you know, he is not teaching me lessons anymore. He taught me
Sure.
all the way until I went to college.
Yeah, that's great, man.
And I mean, I got 3 to 4 lessons a week and an
Amazing.
attentive ear on the practice room.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, don't go on yet. You made a mistake. Go back to F sharp.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
So yeah, that was as I say, that was an unfair advantage. But I also have to realize that something was kind of strange about me. You know, I started when I was really young and I really wanted to do it. I started when I was 6 and I really wanted to do it.
Amazing.
That's just
Great.
weird. That's just not what happens.
It's definitely not typical
And
with any discipline,
yeah.
not only music.
right. And so I just, you know, I wanted to hedge against sort of having a unrealistic sort of expectation for my kid.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes I wonder about folks like, you know, like Ravi Coltrane.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is it like being Ravi Coltrane?
Yeah,
Now,
right.
Ravi's great,
Mm-hmm.
but to be John Coltrane's son and to play tenor also,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and some of that kind of stuff. And I don't ever want my son to feel like he's got to compete
Yeah.
against me, or like
Yeah.
I don't want him to ever feel that way. So whatever direction he wants to go in, of course, if he wants to do music, then he'll have all the support in the world.
Right.
And all of my stuff he's going to inherit.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I feel you.
But yeah, it's an interesting kind of challenge for musician parents.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, you know, I've always been of the opinion. I floated out there, and I take him along to all my performances that he's interested in, and I just leave it at that. And you know, if he decides to go that way, that'll be great. If not, that'll be great too. Of course, I'd like it if he would, but I'm not. You know, let him do his thing.
Yeah. All right.
Mhm.
So So talk to us about current events. Talk to us about stuff that you're engaged in right now. I know that the pandemic has sort of been a killjoy.
Yeah.
But it seems like you probably have a few projects you're at least working on.
I do indeed. So after I moved to LA, I started working with a lot of singers, and I toured with Michael Bublé for his first album, and I toured with Diane Shure for a little bit, and all these years I've been working with a singer named Steve Tyrell, who's really like he's like a Tony Bennett style, you know, right middle of the road standards, and all that work is great, and I love doing it. It's not creatively, it's not challenging a lot of the times, you know, as far as improvising and going in. So the past few years, I've started a couple projects of my own to kind of, you know, fill that need, that creative need. And I have a band where I actually sing and play bass, sing along with my my co-leader. Her name's Renee Miara, and I always love the Louie and Ella records. I think those are some of the best recordings ever made. And so I wanted to kind of create a band that was like Americana-ish, but use that as a springboard. So me and her started the band Black Market Reverie, and she's French as well. So it's like we do like French standards and our own songs, and it's like violin, acoustic guitar, drums, bass. She plays ukulele. So it's like a different vibe, and even if we're doing originals or standards or French songs, it all has the same kind of sound. And that's been fun because I've been a freelance musician all my life, which is great and which I love, and you're playing with different people every night, and it's great. But it's cool to be like in a band too, and like try to write songs and like have a group of people kind of working. I know you've had your own band for years, so you know what I'm talking about. Just have a band kind of like working towards one thing, and like making the performance not all about the blowing and about improvising, but, you know, trying to nail down original compositions and arrangements and stuff. And then I also have a trio. I released a trio record year before last, which was a lot of fun. And but I think, I don't know tell me if you're like this too, but I never stopped shedding during the shutdown, and I was playing a lot. And now, like, I feel like I have about 4 or 5 ideas for projects that I'm ready to go for right now. You know what I mean? It's like I played so much solo bass. I have like all these solo bass arrangements of Beatles songs that I think would be cool. And I have like, I also have a project with electric bass I want to do, like, and transcribe some old like acid jazz and soul stuff from the 70s. Or, you know, maybe I want to do another record with my trio. But it's like now that the world's kind of opening up, I've got all these projects that I've been marinating on, all of them for the past year. Now it's like, now which direction do I go? You know what I mean? Were you like that at all?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a number of things, and all of it hasn't necessarily been music related.
Okay.
You know, this interview series is.
Yeah, congratulations, by the way. This is a great thing, man. You've had some great guests and awesome.
And now I have the bassoon playing bassist.
My feelings are hurt. You asked Ron Carter to be interviewed before me, by the way. What does that guy know? I love Ron's got such a great social media presence now. It's awesome. Yeah. Like for years he had this rep as a real salty guy, and you'd hear like horror stories of guys that took lessons with him, and he just like berated them and made them bow long tones for an hour. But now he's like he's on all those Berkeley Zoom master classes, and he's all over his Facebook, and it's awesome. It's great.
Yeah, it's like once he figured it out, I was talking to Victor about that, because there's like sort of this group of bassists that were convening on Zoom to basically kind of discuss technology and like how to kind of deal with Zoom and doing lessons and doing other things. and at first he didn't know anything, just
Yeah.
like a lot of folks from his generation. They didn't know
Sure.
anything about what was
Sure.
going on with the technology. But now he's like totally up to speed, and he's actually in many ways like kind of leading the curve. Like
Yeah.
he's getting in touch with folks. Hey man, did you get the latest update of on Zoom? Like he's doing this kind of stuff.
That's beautiful, man. Again, always, the masters always looking to learn more, man.
That's what's up. That's what's up. But what were we saying?
I was talking about your projects. We got sidetracked.
Oh yeah. So the interview thing, and I have a few live streaming shows that I do.
Cool.
One of them, my own, is called Thunder's Thoughts. That's a weekly live stream I do on Wednesdays at 4:15 Eastern Standard Time. And then I'm on a couple other folks, content creators, their channel for a Tuesday, every other Tuesday, at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. A show I do tomorrow with a buddy of mine, Ike Ogiamian. The program's called Getting Ish Done. And then I do something with a guy that I met at Western, Takoa Coleman, TK Coleman, and it's called Thunder and TK. That's on his platform. That's every other Tuesday also. I actually record. That's not a live stream. We pre-record that, so we're going to be doing that tomorrow.
Awesome.
But yeah, I mean, so there's been a number of those kind of programs, and just some of the academic stuff.
Are you guys on campus at all right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we've been doing the hybrid thing. Now we're actually done now. So finals week is over, and it's summer sessions in now. But I don't have any teaching responsibilities over the summer. I mean, I just administrative stuff, meeting with the director and stuff like that. Sure. But yeah, I mean, there's been stuff like that, and working on the jazz festival and all of that. And I do have some other project ideas, some things. So my issue is, I have a lot of compositions and things that I haven't recorded yet. And so my challenge always is like, if I have a lot of stuff that's sort of in the hopper, then I can get pretty brutal writer's block. Because it's like, well, why am I doing this? I have all of this other stuff. But there's been some writing that I've done, but it's not been maybe as, maybe not as plentiful maybe as I would want it to be.
Gotcha.
Over this time period. I'm really influenced by the people that I play with. Like if I'm not playing with folks in certain settings frequently, then it kind of takes a toll on my writing.
I feel you. You got a good community of musicians there?
Oh yeah. We've got some terrific.
You run into Byron, right? Stripling?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's my man.
I know Byron did some tours with us with Steve Tyrell, the singer I was talking about, which was one of my, you're talking about that moment with Trent coming to see you, with the Basie band. When I started touring with, let me back up. When I was at Ball State, Byron was a guest artist, and he was, he's great, and he's such a great showman as well as great trumpet player and singer too.
Right.
But then, I started touring with Steve Tyrell, and we're going out for some dates, and he always has a trumpet player, and we're going back east, and I was like, who's playing trumpet? Oh, this guy Byron Stripling. I was like, what? So that was like, that was a great moment for me. This is probably like 15, 16 years ago, but that was a great moment for me. And then I've seen him. I've done the jazz cruise, a jazz themed cruise,
right,
for the past 2-3 years, and he's been on that. He's great. I love Byron.
Yeah, I'll tell him you said hey.
Oh, please do. Oh, please do.
And Byron, he directs the Columbus Jazz Orchestra, and I play in that band frequently.
Great.
And that's then cool, also, I hired him at Ohio State to teach jazz trumpet.
Oh, cool.
So he's
I
one
guess
of
I
my
didn't realize
colleagues at Ohio State. Yep. And
That's awesome.
this is his second year. He just completed his second year teaching at Ohio State, and he's done a fine job. He's, you know, who else are you going to get?
I know, right?
You know, it's like, my goodness.
You got such a big sound on the trumpet, man. It's awesome. Now, let me ask you, my Midwest geography ain't what it used to be since I moved from Indiana. If you get called for something in like Detroit, is that something you can do, or does it need to be, is that like an overnight thing? Like, I'm not really sure how far.
Oh, yeah.
Detroit is
Yeah. I mean,
Columbus.
I before the pandemic, I was doing some pretty frequent, like a couple times a month. I was playing at Baker's Keyboard Lounge.
Oh, cool.
in
Okay.
Detroit.
So, all right. So it's there. You can.
It's about 3 hours.
Okay. Cool. You can
Yeah.
go out there and do a hit. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's
Which
great,
you going to call me for a hit, man?
Yeah, right.
Detroit?
It'll only take you 3. And I'm gonna call you from in LA. It'll only take you 3
Right,
hours
right,
to drive here. No, I was just wondering
Well,
because, man, it's so important, and this goes back to where this is something I learned at something I had at Western that I didn't realize how important it was until later. I've learned with students, a teacher can talk to a student till you blue in the face, and it's not really going to mean as much if he doesn't have a community of musicians around him pushing as well.
right.
So everywhere I've gone, I've tried to, everywhere I teach, I should say, I try to make it a community of musicians who kind of, push each other. Because, that's what you're just talking about. You have in Columbus. That's what I have in LA as far as our peers. That is a bigger motivator than a teacher sometimes, for most students, in my experience, is having others around you pushing. And like I was saying earlier, when I got to Western and you and Quincy and everyone's just like playing so good and playing so heavy, it's like, man, it gets time to hit the shed. And it's like, I can really point to that as being a point in my musical life where my playing like reached a couple, reached another level or two, just from being around you guys and playing with so many great musicians, So that's why I was asking.
Oh yeah. So Cincinnati is not very far away. Cincinnati is about 2 hours. Cleveland's about 2:15, 2.5, like that. And then, like I said, Detroit's about 3.5 hours.
Cool.
Indianapolis is like 4 hours away. Nashville is about 5 hours, 5.5 hours.
Wow.
So it's kind of, Pittsburgh is not very far away. Pittsburgh is like, 4 or 5 hours or something like that.
Interesting.
So it's kind of situated in a place where you can get calls to go into a lot of these cities that aren't that far away.
Yeah.
I did my doctorate at CCM, University of Cincinnati, and that was a 2-hour drive. I was looking at some other schools. I looked at U of M. And it was really between U of M and CCM. And CCM was closer. Plus, I got a better sort of response, and it just fit better with what was going on at CCM for what I wanted.
Sure.
But yeah, kind of makes it pretty convenient to live in Columbus. Something else about Columbus is, folks don't realize this, but Columbus is actually the biggest city in Ohio.
Oh, wow.
We usually think of Cleveland, or
sure.
maybe we'll think Cincinnati, but Columbus, and it's by a lot, is bigger, and it's in the center of the state and continues to grow. So there's not really anything to prevent it from, continuing.
Right.
It's a Detroit-sized market.
Cool.
So there's, all of the kind of art stuff and, all of that kind of outlets. One challenge I have with Columbus, and this I think is kind of this way, except for Detroit. Detroit's the one outlier. And then areas in Michigan, I think, have been really influenced by Detroit. So there's other places in Michigan that don't sort of follow this sort of standard Midwest sort of kind of rule.
Okay.
There's just not a lot of support for like cutting edge kind of stuff.
Oh, gotcha.
You know,
That makes sense.
so there's a lot of like cover bands and bands that are doing stuff that's been done before, and that stuff is really well received and celebrated, and people come out and support it. But if you're doing something that's really kind of cutting edge, there's not really a place to support that.
Gotcha.
You know? There's not a network for that. You kind of have to go East Coast for the most part. You kind of have to go East Coast. There's some other places in the country that support that kind of thing, but Midwest is not really known for that. And Columbus is like the Midwest of the Midwest.
Right. Gotcha. Well, that's one of the many reasons I love living in LA, because there's definitely support for you know, cutting edge, out, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's really cool. Venues and you know, people who like listening to music, you know, that's reaching for stuff. In addition to the, you know, Hamilton and John Clayton and the other guys who are like, you know, into swinging, like me, like you. It's really cool. It's great. It's good community musicians.
So you were talking about, so you mentioned John Clayton. Of course, I interviewed John.
Oh, great.
And John is someone that I have an interesting relationship with because John came to Western.
Yeah, I was there for that. That. We spent like a week there, right?
Yeah. He did like a residency. And so that was kind of my first exposure to him. And then, you know, I started playing with the Columbus Jazz Orchestra. And then he's someone that frequently contributes charts. I mean, he comes and he does concerts. We did a concert with Joshua Redman and John Clayton. And there's a great pianist. Interviewed him recently, Micah Thomas, who's a New York pianist, but he's from Columbus, you know.
Oh, great.
From Columbus. He went to the Ohio State camp and stuff like that. Kid's got perfect pitch and plays all kind of ridiculous he's like a brainiac, like with the kind of stuff that he's able to play, but it's all rooted in the tradition.
Cool.
So that concert featured those three, and Clayton wrote like this, you know, masterpiece suite to sort of focus on aspects of each one of those artists in that concert. It was
very cool.
Really great concert.
John's been a mentor of mine, you know, my whole time in LA, and he actually has a group he calls it John's Bass Monsters, something like that. John Clayton's Monsters of Bass or something like that. And it's 8 bass ensemble. And we've done a couple concerts. It's so fun, you know. You have to really love bass to be into it. It's like, you know, it's a bunch of old Ray Brown tunes and standards and stuff that he's arranged for 8 basses, and only half of the stuff's his, and then he lets everyone else contribute and arrange for the group. So much fun.
He's a good dude. He's
very much.
Yeah, a special dude.
For sure.
All right, man. Is there anything that you want to plug?
You know, if you know, my band I was talking about earlier is called Black Market Reverie. BlackMarketReverie.com is our website, and you know, that'll point you in the direction for all the socials and stuff like that. Besides that, I'm pretty easy to find because of my unique name, Lyman Medeiros, on all, you know, Facebook, Instagram, whatever.
Yes.
You know.
And I'm going to link. I'll link you in the description to the video.
Oh, great!
So people can find you easily. And it's been great, man.
Really great.
Again.
Man,
We're gonna
I
have to-
really hope we find an opportunity to play sometime because it would be
Yeah,
an
that's what I
honor
was about to say. The 20, what is it? 21 years. That's
Yeah.
not. That's
It's
not
too
as
long,
often.
Way too long. It'd be an honor to play with you again, man. Definitely.
Absolutely. Likewise, man.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this.
Me too. Thank you.
All right. Well, God bless you, and I'll be rapping.
Great. See you, Sean.
All right.
Bye.
See you.